Certain languages have acquired certain images for themselves. Some tongues are seen as sounding fierce and mighty, while others have mysterious vibes to them. Some other languages meanwhile have attained this image of sounding incredibly attractive, romantic, and even sexy. Am I allowed to say sexy here? Don't think I've ever said the word sexy on YouTube. Please don't demonetize me for saying sexy, please. Thank you, YouTuber. Anyway, there's a selection of tongues which have commonly been referred to as sounding way sexier than other languages. The large majority of these sexy languages derive from the Romance family of languages, which is part of the larger Proto-Indo-European family. This family of tongues isn't called Romance because they sound sexy, it's because they originated with the tongue of the Romans, Latin. The concept of romance, like we see plastered all over the place on Valentine's Day, is named after these languages in a roundabout way. We have a whole video on the matter. These sexy romance languages include the likes of Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese, but perhaps the most undisputed champion of sexy languages goes to the other prominent romance language, French. With over 300 million people who can speak it to some degree or another across the globe, there's a lot of sexy French speakers out there. And of course, French is way more than just the language of France. It's spoken in Haiti, parts of Canada, and many African nations like Madagascar, Cote d'Ivoire, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In fact, there's more French speakers in the DRC than in France itself. For so long, French has been seen as this deeply attractive language, and this isn't just a word of mouth thing either. A 2017 survey of sexy languages saw French come out on top. There's actual data behind people loving this erotic language. Yet what exactly is it about French, out of all languages on the planet, that makes it so irresistible? There seems to be multiple reasons from a language perspective why French has come out as the top language people find sexy. These range from the way it sounds to how exactly it's spoken. Take the language's use of syllable timing. Certain languages are deemed syllable timed languages, and French is one of them. What this means is that when spoken, there's specific rules in place in regards to what syllables get stressed. And in French, the rule is that only the last syllable of every word gets stressed. Other tongues like English are considered stressed timed languages, meaning there isn't much rule or reason as to what syllables get stressed when speaking. If you listen to the way I'm speaking now, you will notice that certain syllables are being way more stressed than others. This is just how English is naturally spoken, while French is spoken with more specific stresses. One source I found compared English and French to Morse code and a machine gun respectively. Comparing French to a machine gun doesn't quite evoke the romantic image French has, but it gets the point across in regards to the sounds of its syllables. Each one comes out in an expected way, like the bullet of a machine gun. English being Morse code meanwhile relates to the fact that syllables can change length with English, like the dots and dashes of Morse code. This is all well and good, but why does the language's use of syllable timing make it even sound sexy? Well, it seems to do with the way we perceive this kind of speech pattern. For various reasons, having just the last syllable of a word stressed is something our brains enjoys hearing and even does find attractive. It actually has a similar flow to a beating heart, which is something deeply linked with love. Speaking of words matching heartbeats, languages that don't naturally do this, like English, can go out their way to do in some cases, with the best example of this being iambic pentameter. This is a kind of poetry where stressed syllables are used to replicate the feeling of a beating heart. Yeah, in some ways, French naturally sounds like lovey-dovey poetry. Syllables aside, French just sounds sexy in various other ways too. A 2013 study into what kinds of voices sound sexiest revealed that voices which are husky and breathy are often deemed the most sexy. While voices that speak all kinds of languages from around the world can be husky and breathy, the language of French just naturally allows this to happen. This is because many of the sounds and word forming elements which appear across French are naturally said in a husky way. This includes many of the language's fricatives, with fricatives being a certain group of consonants made by placing two articulators close to one another, with articulators in language terms being things like our tongues and lips. A great example is with the French R sound in words like rouge. In French, this is just naturally said in a husky manner. This isn't the case in English, where R in most cases just makes a boring, non-sexy R-like sound in words like ready or rough. This isn't the only sexy fricative French has either. The je sound is naturally said in a husky way too. When this sound appears in English words like towards the middle of a mesure, we don't really say it in a more sexy way. French really does just demand you say things in a sexy manner. English can of course be spoken in a husky way too. In fact, fact, when people are trying to sound sexy, whether that be intentionally or for comedic reasons, they tend to put on an overly husky and breathy voice. It's not only French's consonants which are sexy, as their vowels are pretty hot too. Many of French's vowel sounds, like the OO sound, require people to move their mouths into an O shape. This isn't too far off the shape we make our lips into for kissing. As I'm sure you all know, kissing is a very romantic thing. Of course, sometimes we are required to make these kinds of faces in English for certain sounds, but they are nowhere near as commonplace as they are in French. Between French's heart-beating sounding syllables, its husky consonants, and its kissy face vowels, it's really easy to understand from a linguistic perspective why this language is seen as being so gosh darn sexy. Yet even away from the language of French itself, there are other reasons why the tongue is considered hot. A lot of these have to do with the homeland of the French language, France itself. France and its people have picked up this image. Some countries are famous for their history, some for their geography, and some for their technological advancement. France, meanwhile, is a country famed for its culture. For a large variety of reasons, France is seen as the home of all things culture, ranging from food to art to music to style. Paris in particular is seen as the beating heart of the cultural world. Like, the most famous painting in the world can literally be found here. And a lot of these cultural activities like music and writing and painting have become deeply linked with love and romance. With France being the birthplace of this romantic culture, it makes sense why the country and its tongue would be considered so sexy too. France is also very respectful of its language. Proper speaking and pronunciation is something valued in France, and even in schools many kids have to give presentations in front of their fellow pupils on a regular basis. There's even eloquence competitions in France where people compete to be the best speakers of the language. The other thing about French being so sexy has little to do with the French language on its own in a vacuum. What helps add to this sexiness is that classic French accent. Some argue that it's not the French language that's sexy, but instead the French accent. Like, what's sexier? Someone with a French accent speaking English, or someone with an English accent speaking French? I'm not really sure there's one definitive answer to that one. The accent may sound attractive, but there's also a boatload of proof out there as to why the language is sexy too. I think the correct answer might be they are both sexy. This sexy accent and this sexy language came together to become ultra sexy, like some kind of sexy language megazord or something. But it's all these factors which have come together to give French this image of being the sexiest language on our planet, from the way it's spoken to the culture of the French people themselves. But of course, beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. Or ears of the beholder, I guess makes more sense in this case. Not everyone is going to think French is the sexiest, or even sexy at all. Many might even find it grating or irritating. I imagine those in France itself or other French-speaking nations don't hold it in any particular esteem. To them, it's not some exotic language spoken by sophisticated people who live in trendy cities. To them, it's just the language they speak. People outside of France may think this too, and find another tongue like Finnish, Turkish or Swahili to be the sexiest out there. In fact, even French's time as the top sexy language might be coming to an end. Remember I said it was chosen as the sexiest in a 2017 survey? Well, since then another survey has been taken, and French was knocked from its top spot and fell to second place. It was the fellow romance tongue of Italian which took the #1 spot this time. Beyond the romance languages, other tongues like Arabic, Lingala, and Japanese did well in this survey too, and are reportedly very attractive. Even my language of English and the British accent are apparently sexy too, something I'm not entirely convinced by. Like, we don't all sound like Hugh Grant, you know. Name Explained depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/NameExplain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT, and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.